you.
And then she just doesn't want to give up her summer. She's like, I already got all these plans for the summer, and I'm like, then move in towards home. Just before school starts. If you want my help, you need to move in before school starts.
There you go.
Good evening, Mr. McMahon.
How are you?
Good.
What's that? Oh, heats up.
Where did that happen? It evaporated in a day? Or just over time? I have a dream. Our laundry tub, we moved it, and so we never use it. So the P-trap will evaporate, and we'll get that sort of vegetable oil. Because vegetable oil won't evaporate.
I'd like to call to order the Milan Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending. Ms. Freight and Ms. Murray, our board members are excused this evening, as well as our school board or our student school board members. In general, they don't attend during the summer. So, first up is public comments. So I remind you, this is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you'll be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board? All right. Moving on, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 7th, 2023.
Moved by Rosenleacher.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 7th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, it's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 7th, 2023. Ms. Heika?
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow, Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Rosenleacher,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the budget hearing of June 7th, 2023. It's been moved by Tom Farrow.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the budget hearing of June 7th, 2023. Is there any discussion? It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the budget hearing of June 7th, 2023. Ms. Heika?
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
Next up on the agenda, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 board meeting dates as detailed in attachment A.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Heika.
It's been moved and supported by Heika, moved by Farrow, supported by Heika to approve the 2023-2024 board meeting dates as detailed in attachment A. So we've had this at the last meeting, we've had some discussion about it. The one change that we made from the last meeting is we moved the December 20th meeting to December 13th. right now, the only order of business for that meeting would be the regular meeting items and the superintendent evaluation. So that's the only change from the last time. Any other comments or questions regarding the board meeting schedule? I will just make a note that on the notice that it says the Board of Education will be having the meetings here in the Milan High School Theater, but then it also says that times meetings may be held in the district office boardroom located at Milan High School, 200 Big Red Drive. So we are looking into getting back to the boardroom and what it takes to make that happen. So I would imagine more of these meetings in the future will be taking place in the boardroom, and we'll make sure that the notice reflects that. So, all right. Any other comments or questions? It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 board meeting dates as detailed in attachment A. Ms. Heika.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Heika, yes. Rosenleacher.
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Pharaoh.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next up on the agenda, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 Big Red Chat dates as detailed in attachment B.
Moved by Rosenleacher.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 Big Red Chat dates as detailed in attachment B. Again, there's not a requirement that we vote on this, but it's showing good faith effort that we are going to schedule these in advance, as it's a good way to have two-way communication with our stakeholders. It was suggested by our communications committee, and we wanted to show good faith that we are scheduling these into the future. So Ms. Rosenleacher provided us an outline for that. We will determine the topics as we move forward. We've closely followed items from the strategic plan as part of that. At the last Big Red board chat that we had, it was brought up that they would definitely like to continue to have a budget topic as part of the Big Red chat. So that's one of the things that we'll definitely put into the Big Red chat schedule as we move forward. So, and we will continue to rotate them through the schools as we've done to help bring people into the various schools. So, any other questions or comments regarding? Yeah, Ms. Rosenleacher.
Mr. Sislo, I'd just like to remind everyone that even though we took action on that, so we would set dates, those dates are not set in stone. So if something should come up with the community or the district that would require us to move those, we have the flexibility to do that.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
I would like to suggest that these dates, and it's actually on a very nice flyer, be shared with the building administrators and the teachers as soon as possible as they're working towards their activities for next year, so that they can avoid those dates ahead of time, particularly in the lower elementary schools where there's not as many activities. And so having a family activity is very important to those buildings. So if we could share those ahead of time, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely, it makes great sense.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Mr. Farrow.
Will we determine at a later date which board members are going to attend the various meetings? Just because I know that I have a conflict in February.
Yeah, I think we can, now that we have these dates set, maybe what we can do is we can find out who has conflicts, and then we can make sure that they're, so that we can share the wealth. As we've stated before, we only have 3 board members attend in order to avoid any conflicts with the Open Meetings Act. So that's where we have a topic to discuss, but then it's always open for any other discussion at those meetings. So I think also Ms. Rosenleacher, were you exploring the opportunity to potentially get this on the Milan community calendar?
Yes, I was waiting until we had the dates confirmed, and then if we can put them on the city calendar, I think it would be a good idea for the greater community to be able to see those dates as well. So
Okay.
I will take action on that probably next week.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the 2023-2024 Big Red Chat dates as detailed in attachment B. Ms. Heika.
Gutierrez.
Yes.
Heika, yes. Rosenleacher.
Yes?
Sislo.
Yes.
Pharaoh.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next up, in the strategic plan area of academics and programs, I needed a motion to approve the amended and restated Washtenaw Educational Options Consortium Agreement as provided in attachment C2 in accordance with the resolution provided in attachment C1.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Pharaoh.
It's been moved and supported to approve the amended and restated Washtenaw Educational Options Consortium, better known as WEOC, agreement as provided in attachment C2 in accordance with the resolution provided as an attachment C1. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just to clarify, this is the agreement between the 9 districts in the county that allow us to operate all of the WEOC programs through a consortium. This agreement was developed by lawyers at True & Law on behalf of the consortium. We felt that it was time to make a few changes and modifications to get it up to date with the way that we operate. There really are no major changes to it. It's the way that we've been operating as far as how many slots do we get and how do we dole those slots out and those things. We just kind of changed some of the language to be in agreement with that. We also, the one change that we made is it used to require that all 9 districts boards approved it before it was ratified. The problem is we had some issues with some boards not getting it done possibly in a timely fashion, and then that held up and could possibly not allow us to hire staff and do things that we need to do. So the way it's written now is if 6 of the 9 approve it by a certain date, then WEOC exists and we'll move forward, and the other 3 will have time to approve it, and we'll see if there are any issues, but it won't hold up the whole process. So as soon as you approve this, I will let them know and we'll start counting. I know 1 or 2 districts have already approved it as well. So I don't think there's going to be any issue getting to the 9 or to the 6 of 9.
Any questions or concerns regarding the agreement?
I guess I should clarify for the community too. This is what, this oversees the WAVE Alternative Education Program, the Early College Alliance at Eastern Michigan University, and the International Baccalaureate Program known as Y-High. This year we will also be adding an 8th grade version of WAVE and then moving into 7th and 6th grade over the next couple of years. So that's one of the new addendums that's added is to start a middle school version of WAVE. That program will have a lot more in-person time. It will be quite different than the high school version of WAVE because those students need a different type of monitoring and support.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the amended and restated Washtenaw Educational Options Consortium Agreement as provided in attachment C2 in accordance with the resolution provided in attachment C1. Ms. Heike.
Heike, yes. Rosenleacher?
Yes?
Sislo?
Yes.
Pharaoh?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next up on the agenda in the area of learning environment and culture is our book study. So just a reminder, this was a book that was recommended to the board to read in regards to the school shooting that took place on February 14th, 2018, where a former student opened fire on the students and staff at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in the Miami suburban town of Parkland, Florida. It murdered 17 people and injured 17 others. This will complete the book study. These are the final 2 chapters, chapters 15 and 16, and an epilogue. And I'll just provide a summary of those chapters at this time. Chapter 15 covered various reports in the news regarding the school district. There were many projects that were identified in a bond project that the school had. Some of those that were started were several $1 million over budget. There is also some confusion regarding the Public Safety Act regarding hiring armed guards and the school board voting against this funding. The school board later reversed course and decided to hire 80 armed guards, but it was late in the summer and they had only hired 8. It also talks about where the superintendent canceled a review on the response to the shooting from a retired Secret Service officer, and this was the same officer earlier in the book who had provided safety tips before the shooting occurred. The superintendent and school board indicated that the school would have metal detectors before the next school year. And just before school started back, the superintendent said there would not be metal detectors, and it was discovered that the order was never placed. Also during this time, the shooter's educational history was publicly released, and it was redacted, but it wasn't redacted properly and such that there was redacted portions that could be read. The superintendent continued to deny issues that were released in the educational history, even though that they could be read beyond the redaction. If you remember last time, there was a candidate that the supporters of that the authors of the book supported, and they were trying to gain the endorsement of David Hogg, who was a student at the time of the shooting, and was a leader of a program called March for Our Lives. They thought they had the support, but ultimately they did not. And then that chapter ends with the families of the victims holding a press conference in August and urging the community to vote for new school board members. Chapter 16 covers the school board election. It talked about stories about confrontations between two teachers and another confrontation between two community members at early voting stations. The police were called several times on the candidate the authors were supporting. The police came to the polling stations to talk to the candidate. They cited trespassing violations. The candidate recorded their interactions and posted them online. It also speaks of a story about the sister of the author who volunteered her time near early polling station, and she was accused of utilizing death to justify negativity. The campaign also had volunteers for each polling station during election day. After the election is over, the book talks about how the supporters go to a local restaurant and they begin to realize they lost the election as the results come in. As the authors ruminate about the election loss, they come to a conclusion that apathy is one of the main reasons they lost. They find some solace in the fact that the author did build Princess Meadows Playground, which is the only memorial for the 17 victims. So that's how the book ended, and then an epilogue where the author stated that he did not want the book to be political. He says the NRA had nothing to do with the shooting, and that the media used the shooting as an opportunity to pit Americans against one another and increase the media's ratings. The author wanted to concentrate on school safety, and he understood that there are many other school safety issues that have nothing to do with guns. He believes that political correctness and social justice discipline are the main issues, and he encourages parents to make a difference for their children. And that's how the epilogue ended the book. Other comments about these chapters?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Rosenleacher.
I think one of the most important things, and we've spoken about this quite a bit from this table, this over the time we've spent with this book, and it is important to remember, we know there were a lot of mistakes. We need to continue to do better. We know better. We do better. I appreciate that, especially in the epilogue, that I feel like there was a little bit of an acknowledgement that there were a multitude of errors that took place. And yes, there's a lot of division sown in our country right now, but I also believe when we have dialogue and conversation with one another that we can continue to grow and be better. So that's kind of where I landed as I finished the text.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenleacher. Others?
Mr. Sislo,
Yes, Ms. Lake.
along those same lines, we see this still playing out in the media as Scott Peterson, who is the resource officer who did not go into the building, did not stop the shooter as he saw him on campus and knew he wasn't supposed to be there, is now on trial for his lack of action. And the jury, I think, is on their third day of deliberations at this point. So we see this still playing out, and I think it's good that everyone is still focused on the mistakes that were made and what can we do better. But I do think it's important as we finish this book study to remind the public in the many ways that, that we do things differently here. And one of the main things I think that we do differently, and we've talked about throughout the course of reading this book is that while we also, use restorative justice as a means of addressing discipline and behavioral problems, we also do it along with discipline. We are not a district that only utilizes restorative justice, and that there are consequences for behaviors. And that, we're a much smaller district than they are. I think people tend to forget or may not even know how large of a district Parkland is, and how it's probably easier in that community to kind of shuffle kids around and for kids to fall through the cracks than it is in our small, tight-knit community. And so those are two things I want everyone to take away, is that this is still playing out on what those mistakes were and how those mistakes should be addressed, how we are actually very different than Parkland and how we utilize restorative justice. And then last time we was here, I told everyone I was now reading Fred Gutenberg's Find the Helpers. I'm continuing to read that book, and I would encourage the public, if you would also like an alternative view of how to deal with the grief. David Hogg, as Mr. Sislo mentioned, is a Parkland survivor. He is one of the founding members of March for Our Lives, and he also has a very active Twitter account where he discusses not only his experiences, but how he's still dealing with them and sharing some of his successes, and then some secrets about himself that I think people would find very interesting. Just in the last day or so, he's been very open about his own gun ownership and what he, how he uses guns and how many he has, and I think that's surprising to people given his support and activity in gun control legislation. But it's just another alternative discussion of how to handle that grief that I would encourage people to look at.
Thank you, Ms. Aika. Any others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
To the point, I think it was Michelle that just made it, that we do discipline in this district. As I was reviewing the scorecard in preparation for this meeting, I'd like to note and remind the public that on this scorecard, we list by building, by month, the number of in-school and out-of-school suspensions in the district. And I think it's notable to see the pattern and the degree to which discipline is taken very seriously in this district. And in addition to those, anyone who's been paying attention this year to board meetings knows that there have been some expulsions this year as well. And so those incidents do happen, and we take them very seriously here within this district. What I got out of the epilogue, and I was trying to read it with a point that seeking common ground. And I think the author noted the point that we all, whether we're community members, parents, students, board members, we all care deeply and passionately about school safety. And I think if we start there, if we start from that premise that of course we care about school safety, we care about the well-being of our children, we care about the well-being of our teachers, the well-being of the families in our district, and that the how we get there is the point that needs to be considered. And there's not a right or wrong answer to that question, because if there were, we as a nation would have solved this problem. And there are a lot of very bright and talented and enthusiastic minds looking at this issue from all points of view, from educational points of view, from research points of view. And so I think it's a question that we as a society continue to grapple with, but I think we all need to appreciate and recognize that is our commonality, is that we want to keep our children safe, and how do we do it is a point for discussion and polite discourse, but that we need to listen and hear each other, because we are continuing as a society to continue to work through this problem. And I appreciated that in the epilogue that's where I saw the author come to. I think there were some points about the how we get there point, but making the statement that as a society, we all have a vested interest in caring about school safety, I think is notable and something that we as a board continue to revisit.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Sisson.
Yeah, Mr. Fairley.
I'll just comment briefly. I know it was touched upon, but yeah, there was certainly a series of errors and failures, not just by the school district, but a host of different groups in that area of Florida. And I think what I got out of this is certainly the unimaginable loss, the grief, and this parent wanting answers. And I'm not sure that he got all the answers that he's seeking, and as Michelle said, it's still playing out. But it was a difficult read, and I'm glad that we did it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fairley. All right. Next up on the agenda in the strategic area of personnel and leadership, I need a motion to appoint the following people to the teaching positions listed in the base salaries effective immediately for the 2023-2024 school year. Alexis Jaster for Milan High School social worker and Monica Mari for Paddock Early Childhood Special Education teacher.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's been moved and supported to appoint positions listed in base salaries effective immediately for the 2023-2024 school year. Alexis Jaster and Monica Murray. Mari?
Maury.
Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just pleased to be able to bring you two very qualified candidates for these positions. The Milan High School social worker position was created by a resignation, but kind of a retirement. Just not eligible to retire in Michigan, but is moving on with her husband who's retiring. And the Paddock Early Childhood Special Education position is vacant because of a retirement. We felt blessed to have some qualified candidates and to be able to select two people that we believe will do a great job for us in the coming school years.
Any questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to appoint the following people to the teaching positions listed in base salaries effective immediately for the 2023-24 school year. Alexis Jaster for Milan High School social worker and Monica Mori for the Paddock Early Childhood Special Education teacher. Ms. Heika.
Rosenleacher,
Yes?
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Next up, I need a motion to approve the technology director's 2023-2024 compensation of $88,000.
Moved by Farrow.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the technology director's 2023-2024 compensation of $88,000. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just want to explain that over the last couple of years, we've lost two very critical people out of the technology department. This department is hard to keep staffed because not only do we compete against the educational world, but we compete against the business world for people that have these skill sets. As we were looking and redesigning the department to restructure so that we would be able to combine two positions and create a salary that's appropriate, I spent time looking at the Michigan school business officials' data that they collect on these types of positions. I also spoke with numerous other tech directors in the county and really worked to come up with what I felt was an appropriate salary for that position that we were posting and filling. As I did that work, it became apparent that position was going to start to become close to our tech director's salary and that I needed to possibly do some research on our tech director's salary. And so I started that work and followed the same path. Looked at the Michigan school business officials' salary survey data that they do every year and break it down by different types of school districts. I also then looked at that in light of how our teachers are compared to other districts to make sure that we weren't getting out of sync with our comparisons to other districts within certain departments. So in doing all of that research, I provided some of that for you, and felt that we truly do need to make an adjustment to our tech director's total compensation, and that is to set the salary at $88,000 for the 23-24 school year.
Mr. Sislo?
Yeah, Ms. Heika.
Mr. Gearbaugh, did the tech director receive the same 4% increase that the rest of the admin received as a result of the last round of contracting?
I believe that position received the same base salary increases that all of the rest of the administrators received. Yes, that were in line.
Okay. I ask because I'm struggling with what we anticipate will be teacher layoffs, but then increasing salaries of one person, so increasing the salary of one person in the district when we know that we're, due to budget constraints, going perhaps have to lay off at least 2 teachers. And so that's what I'm struggling with. I appreciate all of the research that you did, and it's clear you were very thorough. I just am struggling and feel very uncomfortable doing this at this time.
Yeah, I can understand the struggle, and I do appreciate the work done as well. I think the fact that we've lost 2 people in this department because of some issues beyond our control. I mean, even if potentially if the technology director leaves, I feel that we probably have to post this position at a similar level. So I'm not sure that losing 14 years of experience, I believe we'd have to weigh that benefit versus keeping the salary where it's at now.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
Effectively, and I agree, Mr. Gearbaugh, I think you did an extremely thorough review of appropriate compensation packages relative to other districts based upon number of employees, number of students, region of the district, which is effectively looking at an equity review of the position. And I just wonder, the equity review for the technology director ended up happening a bit due to serendipity. You noticed one other position in that department and then looked at this one. And I just wonder if there are routine equity reviews done of non-teaching staff throughout the district. I want to understand that so that we can make sure that if this salary were to be adjusted, that this is not just an anomaly, and that we would be doing this kind of on a larger scale.
Those salary adjustments are normally handled when we hire. And we have made some of those adjustments in our athletic director position, in our transportation director, and some of those other positions. The thing that's different about this position is this person's been in the district so long that there's never been that need to necessarily look at it. And you're right, it probably should have been reviewed a little bit earlier. I am using some of that MSBO data to kind of check some of our other positions as well. And Ms. Hendricks and I did that. I don't believe we have any others that are out of sync right now. We don't have as many of those positions as a larger district, so there aren't really that many that we have to review. Because remember, all of our building administrators are through a handbook that has salary bands. So those are, I mean, you're probably down to 6 or 7 people that we really need to check. And this is the one that Ms. Hendricks and I felt was out of sync.
Okay, helpful, thank you.
Other questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the technology director's 2023-2024 compensation of $88,000. Ms. Heika?
Rosenleacher,
Yes.
Sislo,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Gutierrez,
Yes.
Heika, no. Motion carries 4-1.
All right, next up on the agenda is back to public comments. Just a reminder again, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who'd like to address the board? Are there any public members who'd like to address the board? All right, moving on. Student board representative comments. They are excused this evening. Superintendent comments. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Yes, just a few things to share, and it has been 3 weeks since our last board meeting, so believe it or not, we did have some end-of-year school activities that happened since our last board meeting. So as I was putting my notes together, it kind of caught me off guard because that feels like it was a long time ago. But I will get to some of those in my announcements. First, I do want to let everyone know that the main offices of our schools, as normal, are going to be closed from July 3rd to the July 28th. Public can still reach the administration using email or calling the office. During this time, it is important to know that the district office is open Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. So if anyone has any needs that they have with the district, even if they're with a specific building, they can always contact the central office or come to the district office. That includes new student registrations. Any parents that need to register new students can do so in 3 different ways. They can call 734-439-5050, and Mrs. Four will help them get their student registered. They can come to the district office between 8:30 and 3:30, Monday through Friday, or they can visit milanereaschools.org, select the students and families, then select prospective families, and there's a link there where they can enroll their new student online. So there are 3 different ways, but we want families to know that just because the school offices are closed, that doesn't mean that you can't register new students, and we will have signs on all of the doors of the buildings letting community know that if they show up to a building, it will direct them to reach out to the district office. The Pride Picnic hosted by ARC on Thursday, June 8th was an amazing community event. I was able to attend for a portion of that event. We had numerous staff and students of all ages there, and it was really just a nice community-wide event that was held. The Milan Middle School Recognition Night on Thursday, June 8th was well attended. I truly like the format of this program for the middle school because it allows the families to celebrate their students' participation in all kinds of academics and in extracurricular activities. I just want to thank everyone. It takes a lot of work to put that together, and I just want to thank the middle school administration and all of the staff that were there to help make it a very enjoyable evening. On Friday, June 9th, Mrs. Bookout and the Simon staff did a great job of celebrating our soon-to-be Milan Middle School students at the 5th grade celebration. It was truly a wonderful event, amazing turnout from families. It is held at the end of the school day, and one thing that's impressive to me is each class in 5th grade has a student stand up and speak about what 5th grade meant to them, and we had just amazing 5th grade speakers that got up in front of probably 300 to 400 people and spoke. And what an amazing thing for someone that age to feel comfortable doing. So congratulations to all of those students that addressed the audience. Milan Middle School did a color run on Monday, June 12th. It was a reward for some of the fundraising events that had happened during the year. The students truly enjoyed the reward, and it was great to see that something that could get out of hand did not, and our students respected the rules, and I think the students saw that you can have a lot of fun and enjoy an activity while following the rules. And they really did a great job. A lot of planning went into that, and we were able to keep all of the powder outside of the building, which was a concern of the custodians. We did that by if a student had to go in the building, believe it or not, we blew them off with a leaf blower, and it really solved the problem. The final dismissal on Tuesday, June 13th, went very smoothly. and truly was a positive experience at each of the buildings. I just want to thank all of our staff and students. It's always nice to have a safe and successful wrap-up to the school year, and we did so this year on June 13th. Some staff news. Sad news that we just received today. Becky Fornash, who is a parapro at the high school, lost her mother, I believe, yesterday. The staff luncheon and retirement recognition held on June 13th was a very nice event. It wasn't all tears this year, as you know, and I won't name this person. One of the retirees has quite a comedic side, and so there was a lot of laughter as well as tears during the retirement recognitions. And it's just a great time to be able to celebrate all of the service that our retirees have provided to Milan area schools. Throughout the summer, additional progress on our safety work will be accomplished by the administrative team. I am continuing to meet with SEC to continue our work on those safety improvements. Right now, we are specifically working through 6 items that were determined could be completed in a 3 to 6 month time frame. And so you'll be hearing more about those in the months to come as we start to implement some of those tweaks to some of our safety procedures and physical changes to some of our buildings using the grant dollars that were provided specifically for those upgrades. For those that were anywhere around town, on Thursday, June 22nd, you probably saw a lot of people riding bikes. That's because we hosted almost 300 pedal across Lower Michigan, known as Palm, bike riders at the Milan High School. They actually camp on the grounds. They actually bike from one coast of Michigan to the other coast of Michigan, and they try to stop at schools. This was the 3rd time that we've hosted them in my time as superintendent. The visitors do use the grounds, the shower facilities, the pool, and some other spaces. A huge thank you to our custodians, our lunch staff who provided dinner for them, our student lifeguards who came and worked the pool so it was safe, and Robert Hall, our athletic director, who oversaw a lot of the coordination of that event. Just a wonderful event for us to be able to support a group, but I do want to make it clear, Palm does pay for all of our staffing costs for that event, as well as facility rental and all of the food costs. So there was no K-12 money spent to host. We actually make a little bit of money off of hosting that event. The last thing that I have is I received an email in the middle of the day today that the state budgets, including the school aid budget, were released out of committee. There was the possibility that they were going to vote today. I have not received any emails to hear that that happened, but that's not to say that legislature isn't still in session at this time. But hopefully we will get state budgets approved in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaum. Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick comments for you. I wanted to remind you that summer school is underway. We've completed 2 weeks. We're running, for the K-5 program, it's funded by 11T. We have approximately 130 students from 9 to 1 every day, well, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 6 weeks. So we're 2 weeks underway, and it's going great. Transportation, food service, everything's worked out because we've got great people taking care of them. We did add this year an interventionist and a TC to each building. So we're using the funds to provide additional services. So that we're excited about that. I also want to share with you that we were notified recently that Simons Elementary was selected by the MDE to participate in the NAEP testing next year. So all we know at this point is it's going to be 4th grade, the window's from January to March, and it's a 2-hour assessment in math and, 2 separate assessments, math and reading. There's more information to come, but we were the lucky winners to be selected for NAEP. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon.
I want to be clear. We do not have the option to deny
Yes, thank you.
giving the NAEP. We don't like testing our students any more than we have to, but when you are selected, it is an absolute requirement from the Federal Department of Education. So we will be giving the NAEP test, and that is in addition to the MSTEP and the NWEA tests that we already administer. So we apologize to our parents, but we have no choice as we were selected.
And what grade levels is that again? For Simons?
It's
What grade levels?
4th grade,
Just 4th grade.
Yep.
math and reading.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, they spread the test out. It's given it a lot of grades, but each district usually just gets one grade selected. So they try to spread it out amongst a lot of districts across the whole country.
All right, board member comments.
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms.
I
White.
just also, Mr. Gearbaugh mentioned the student lifeguards who volunteered their time for the Palm program. I want to thank those students. Many of those students also volunteered their time as lifeguards for the fifth graders who came over to swim on the last day of school. Many of them were seniors. They hadn't been in school in weeks, had already graduated and came back and volunteered their time so that the fifth graders could come swim and enjoy their last, I think it was the last day of school. And many of these lifeguards are also going to come and volunteer their time at Safety Town to teach water safety. So I think there's a great group of kids that keep coming back and keep giving back, and they are setting precedent that are encouraging other kids to come and do the same thing. In our household, the discussion was, you got to swim when you were in fifth grade because someone volunteered their time, so you should go volunteer your time so someone else can come and swim. So I just think that there's a lot of great opportunities for our kids to keep giving back, and they just keep doing it at every turn. So I just want to thank them and their parents who are also encouraging it. So thank you, everyone.
Cool.
Mr. Sislo.
Yes, Mr. Farrell.
I just want to thank Brian for mentioning the state budgets. I had that written down to discuss, but thank you for sharing that. As soon as we know more on the per pupil allowance, that'll be shared and taken into account for future budget adjustments. I wanted to just simply relay on the Big Red Chat that we held on June 20th at Simon's. I thought it went quite well. We discussed the district's budget and district marketing at that meeting. I believe the meeting yielded some good interaction and discussion between members of the Board of Education as well as members from the community. And I also want to thank Mr. Sislo and Ms. Gutierrez for their contributions during the Big Red Chat as well. And then the last thing I have was I'm going to attend an online event that's being hosted by U of M's Prevention Research Collaboration. It's going to take place on July 19th, and it involves comprehensive school safety. So I will share that information with you after I've completed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
I'd like to shout out to the middle school administrators and teachers for the color run. I was there throwing the blue chalk, and I looked like a Smurf when I was done, but it was so much fun to see those kids really having fun. And I know middle school, I'm a mom of a middle school, a sixth grader, has been a big adjustment. There's no recess, there's no playground, it's a transition, but to see them having fun with this activity, which is kind of weird and quirky, it just suited them so well. And Mr. Sandberg was out there running the track with them, and it was just, as was Mrs. Jasper, and it was just really joyous. It was really a nice event, and so thanks to the staff at Milan Middle School, kudos to all the kids who, as Mr. Gearbaugh said, followed the rules and really were able to have a good time. Also, regarding the Big Red Board Chat that Mr. Farrow mentioned, I'd also like to thank Mrs. Hendricks for being there. She is, of course, our financial specialist within the district, and as we were talking budgets, it was very helpful to have her there with us, and so I appreciate her time. In that chat, it came up, and I think there were a lot of questions from the community about the way that school budgets work, and having been through School Finances 101 through the MASB training very recently, I can appreciate how complex those are, and it's something that we discussed there, having a bit more discussion at the board table about the structure and the functionality of school budgets and explaining the terms we use. And so it's something that I will be cognizant of, and I'd encourage the rest of my board members to be cognizant of as well as we go through our various conversations about budgets, because I think the more education that we can provide to the community, the better. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is just thank you to the many Milan area schools staff who work over the summer. We think of being in a district as having the privilege of having summers off, but there are a lot of, Mr. McMahon just mentioned several, who are working throughout the summer, whether it's in the buildings, whether it's doing trainings. Several of our parapros are attending the parapro boot camp that was mentioned several weeks ago at the ISD. And I just want to thank them for continuing to work all year round, dedicating their time and their talents to the kids in the district, and to really continue to make this district a wonderful place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Ms. Rosenleach, anything?
Nothing new this week.
I'll echo the Big Red Board chat as well. I do want to thank Ms. Gutierrez and Mr. Farrow for attending. I do agree with the sentiments that they provided in regards to that Big Red chat. I do want to let folks know that Mr. Gearbaugh, Ms. Heike, and myself met with Troon, their policy division, in the transition from our policies to the Troon policies. So we got good feedback in regards to that. And then Ms. Heike, as the leader of the Learning Environment and Culture team, will be leading that policy review and bringing a recommendation to the board in regards to those policies in the near future. In regards to the budget, there is a MASB presentation on Friday. So hopefully the legislature will have to vote before then, I would imagine before July 1st. So that MASB is hoping to provide those details on Friday. So that's a webinar that I'll be attending in regards to that. There were a couple, Ms. Freight did provide some thoughts in her absence. She also expressed support about getting back to the boardroom. And then she spoke to some of the things that Ms. Gutierrez talked about in regards to the discipline on the scorecard. So she provided some thoughts that I wanted to relay in regards to those. Other than that, are there any other comments or questions? All right. Next up, I need a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 8A of the Michigan Open Meetings Act and upon request of the employee for the purpose of conducting a periodic personnel evaluation.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Gutierrez.
It's been moved by Heike and supported by Gutierrez to enter into a closed session pursuant to Section 8A of the Michigan Open Meetings Act and upon request of the employee for the purpose of conducting a periodic personnel evaluation. So just for everybody's education, we'll enter into this closed session. When we return, the only thing that will be happening will be adjournment. There will be no other business before the board when we come back. You're welcome to stay, but there will be no other business when we return from closed session. Any other comments or questions regarding that? It's been moved and supported to enter into closed session pursuant to Section 8A of the Michigan Open Meetings Act and upon the request of the employee for the purpose of conducting a periodic personnel evaluation. Ms. Heike?
Sislo?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Gutierrez?
Yes.
Heike, yes. Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
We'll go into closed session at 7:52. All right, we've come back into open session at 9:49, and the meeting is adjourned. At 9:50.